Oh my god, what's up guys? What are you looking at? Is this Gears of War 3? I think it is. That's right, I'm playing Gears of War 3 in this. And the main topic of this video is going to be me asking you guys, which Gears of War do you like the most? I think a lot of people are going to say Gears 1. I think a handful will say Gears 2. I don't really know why. I think Gears 2 is honestly one of the worst games ever made, but that's a different video. And honestly, my favorite one was Gears 3. I don't know what it is. Gears 3, I just felt like it had everything right. The combat was just perfect. You know, in Gears 2, when it first came out, it was all about fucking melee and two-piece, and kind of like what Judgment was like when it came out. And after a while, they fixed it, but then it ended up being just like, you know, you only hard-aimed with the Nash, and it got kind of boring. And then, you know, Gears 3 just felt right to me. You know, Gears 1 was awesome too. I love Gears 1, but you know, it felt like you were running around like a rock or something. You know, the movement was bad. That was my problem with Gears 1. And I think Gears 3, you know, sort of had all the good things except for the rifles. I really hated the Retro Lancer, you know, and the sawed-off, you know, those little things. But you know, overall, if you got the right settings, Gears of War 3, I think, was the best game. Judgment, honestly, I don't know about Judgment still. I think Judgment is an okay game. You know, but my favorite mode in the game is Overrun, and I can't really get people to play it with me. That's a real shame, but you know, overall, I don't really like Judgment that much, honestly. You know, I'll defend it a little bit, but to an extent, I don't really know if I am gonna be putting up too much Judgment content over the next, you know, few months or so. Going into this summer, I might start doing different games and stuff. And you know, if you're just someone who like they have to have only Gears of War content, you know, just go ahead and unsubscribe. I don't need people who are subscribed and they're just not gonna watch anything unless it's Gears of War, because you know, I'm gonna definitely cover Gears of War. Don't get me wrong, but it's not gonna be the only content you're gonna see. So if you're just one of those people who are just stubborn, just go ahead and unsub. You know, I won't be offended. It's all good. And I'm still sort of going back and forth on what kind of games I want to get into. You know, I'm thinking about maybe eventually getting Battlefield 4, probably on a console. When I record PC, things just get weird for me. Like, I try to do PC every once in a while, but I try to do that in moderation. You know, but definitely, you know, I'm not going to be like Battlefield 4 channel or anything. Like, honestly, I don't even play Battlefield 3 that much. I was just kind of throwing something out there as far as multiplayer goes. I actually want to do a lot of single-player games as well. I'm still going to do Gears of War commentaries, you know, commentaries on other games. You know, I'm going to throw in some random shit. I mean, it's just going to be a game channel with me commentating stuff. And, you know, you might wonder, well, Slaughter, why don't you just do, you know, Gears 3, keep doing that? Well, the problem is the population. There's just not that many people playing Gears of War these days. It's a real shame because it's my favorite game, of course. I know a lot of you guys, you know, you're pretty, you know, dedicated to Gears of War, but we just don't have the numbers. It's really unfortunate. And, you know, you might say, well, are you trying to do this for the views? Well, not necessarily. I mean, if other people aren't playing Gears, maybe I should just do what other people are doing. And, you know, I'm not trying to say, because I'm a person who hates, you know, conforming, but I just want to be able to find a game and, you know, be in an active community. I'm not saying I'm going to Call of Duty or anything. I fucking hate that shit. But I'm definitely going to go to something that has a population and it's a game that I think is stable, you know, and actually has a, you know, a level of skill to it. You know, I'm one person who just really hates when games lose their skill value. You know, I feel like the skill gap in Judgment is just kind of bad. You know, that's going to be another topic I'm going to cover. And, you know, if people can just fucking melee and get along in a match fine, you know, I have a problem with that. Like, that's why I don't like Halo, because people just, they shoot and they run straight. They just beeline right for you and they slap you. I just think that's the dumbest shit ever. If it's a shooter, all the kills should be guns. You know, maybe like that's why I like Counter-Strike, because, you know, there's only a knife, like, you know, once a round or once a game. And, you know, that's just how it is. You know, it's a gun game. You shoot with your guns, don't fucking slap people. It doesn't take any skill to just get up in someone's face and just start slapping a button at them. You know, I really hate that kind of stuff. You know, maybe if it was like a one-hit kill from behind like Halo has, but it's still 2 slaps up front. I just think that's fucking retarded. And you can definitely tell a player's skill at a game, not only just from their movement, but from how they try to kill people. You'll notice a lot of people that when they're new, or, you know, they're just not, you know, an adequately, you know, experienced or good player, they tend to just run at you and just start slapping their B button trying to get a kill. I played a scrim the other day, and this guy was just trying to melee with his Lancer. That was his game, was trying to melee with the Lancer. And, you know, he got destroyed a few times, and, you know, he got 1 or 2 kills from it, and I bet that made his fucking day. But, you know, it just really aggravates me. You know, I'm all about headshots and about, you know, blowing people up. I'm not about slapping people like a fucking retard. It's just, it promotes bad gameplay, and it's just a really risky and retarded strategy. I think it shouldn't even be in the game in the first place. So that's my main problem with Judgment. You know, I feel like if they had copy and pasted the Gears 3 combat system, then the game would be doing a lot better as far as players go. I think they could have sold more copies if they hadn't done the COG versus COG, and honestly, I'm the person who doesn't care about that. I feel like a lot of people didn't buy the game because there's no COG v Locust in regular multiplayer, and I also feel like people didn't buy it because they got rid of Horde mode. People loved fucking Horde mode. That's why a lot of people bought Gears of War, you know, once the second one started. People loved Horde mode, and they took it away, put that survival that's pretty much just AI fucking, you know, overrun. And I just think that's stupid. I played one game of survival, and I wasn't feeling it. You know, they might as well have just put Horde in the game. I think it would have done a lot better in the long run. But you know, maybe that's something for them to learn in the future if they do more Gears of War. Which, at this point, I don't even know. You know, at first I thought, yeah, they're definitely gonna do more Gears of War games, but this one just hasn't been doing very well with sales, so I don't really know. You know, sort of adding on to that survival mode thing going on was I watched a video from Uber Hex and Nova, if you guys know who that is. And, you know, it kind of gave me some brain hurt watching his video because of the way he played Gears of War. He just kind of like walked around and shit. He didn't know anything that was going on. And they were playing survival, and they were really confused by everything going on because obviously, you know, survival is like overrun stuff. They saw a paddock climb a building, and they were like amazed. They were like, how'd he do that? And they like ran over and started slapping the wall and shit. And I just thought that was kind of silly. And the main problem I had with that video, like, I don't really care that he's bad at the game. You know, he doesn't have to play that game, Gears of War. Like, you know, I don't care. He can be bad as he wants to be. But, you know, the problem I had was that how upset they were that the game was survival and not Horde. They were like, there's not Horde in this game? Why did we even get it? You know, this is a Gears of War. Because that's how a lot of the casuals are that buy Gears of War. You know, I'm not trying to sound, you know, like a pretentious douchebag or anything. But I'm just saying that a lot of the sales of this game, you know, they go to, like, you know, the mainstream community is people want Horde mode. That's what they buy the game for. They buy the game for Horde, and they buy it for COG versus Locust. People love that shit. And it's just really unfortunate that that is one of the barriers of people buying this game. So that's just going to dim our community from the start. And then at launch, we had all these problems with the melee and the stem grenades, and then Epic decided to buff up the rifles. I know tons of people who have told me in the comments on videos and in messages that they don't even want to play Judgment until the game is fixed. And, you know, at this point, Epic better release a title update, and they better, like, announce it to everyone so people know that the game is better than it was, you know, or than it is now. You know, there was that brief period where the game was actually pretty good. You know, at launch, the rifles were perfect. You know, the game was mostly Nasher play, of course. That's what was generally going to happen with a Gears of War game. And then Epic decided, oh no, the statistics say that we should buff the rifles. A terrible decision right there. And then, you know, at least they fixed the melee and the stem. But overall, Judgment, man, I don't know. I feel like the skill gap just isn't there for me to be interested in playing the game. I mean, I'm able to get MVP stuff, you know, in free-for-all, in TDM. You know, I'm able to destroy people pretty decently. But my problem is that those 9 death, like, let's say I go 27 and 9. I'm thinking of a very specific game in my head on Library I played today, and that really pissed me off. All 9 of those deaths were to melee, and this guy that was using the Marksa, he was just spamming the Marksa, and if you got close to him, he'd start slapping. He ain't afraid to slap. He's gonna do it all day. He don't need no headshots. You know, that shit really upsets me. You know, if in Counter-Strike, if he had been missing his shots like that, he'd be dead. I would have blown his head out fucking years ago. He'd be dead. You know what? Give me anything in the game. Give me a fucking Tech 9. He'd be dead. You know, that's just how it is. You know, get a headshot or go home. That's how all shooters should be. And, it's, you know, when I say, well, just play Counter-Strike then, Slaughter. Well, you know what? I do play Counter-Strike, but I like Gears of War more. You know? And I wish Gears of War was a little bit more about shooting than about slapping, because slapping takes no skill, and it's just, you know, a really silly aspect of the game. And I'm pretty sure most of you watching agree with me. You know, if you're a Gears of War player, you agree that melee is stupid and you don't even want it in the game in the first place. And, you know, that's just how things are. You know, the reason melee's in the game is because if you run out of ammo, you know, just some sort of little, you know, defensive, you know, just some way to keep people off of people's faces, and I get that. But it shouldn't do the damage it does, and it shouldn't have a stun. It should be like a really minuscule stun, and it should be hard to do. It should be slow. You shouldn't be able to melee really quickly like you're able to in this game. And I realize they tried to speed up gameplay, but it just isn't working, and it just doesn't make me want to play more. Alright, well, now that I've ranted for a while now, Let's get back to the topic and talk about which game is your favorite Gears of War. Now, I'm saying 3 is my favorite, and I've talked to several people about this before doing this video, and most people are saying 1 and 3. And a few people that I know say Gears 2, and it's like, I don't know, maybe they only played it in its prime or something, because Gears of War 2, honestly, if I went and played it right now, I would just, my heart fucking, you know, would explode probably, because my blood pressure on Judgment is so high because of all the ridiculous nonsense going on in it. You know, I feel like I might as well just play Overrun whenever I play Judgment now. I mean, it's not like I'm bad at the game. Like, you don't understand. I actually have good matches. I have tons of gameplays. I have probably a day's worth of gameplay to show you guys. It is just really good. But, you know, it's not perfect. I'm just that kind of person. I can get almost perfect Gears of War 3 gameplays or any other Gears of War. But when it comes to Judgment, it's just, there's always so much melee, or, you know, the boom shot is just ridiculous, and just little things that piss me off. But you know what? I'm out of time here. Post in the comment your favorite Gears of War game and why. Have a good one. Peace out.